Companion planting is all the rage these days, and I'm sure you can find about 2,000 companion planting charts on Pinterest or on a gardening blog. I'm here to tell you, you don't need a companion planting chart, and there really aren't that many do's and don'ts when it comes to putting plants together. However, there is a science behind it that explains why some plants work well in one bed growing together and some just don't. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you my 4 steps to figuring out which plants work best together so that you can get it right without a chart. So the first step you want to do is categorize your plants. And in general, we're going to categorize plants 4 different ways. The first question you want to ask about any plant you're going to have in a vegetable garden is it an herb? Now, herbs in general are those extra plants that have special smells or flavors, things that we add in addition to our dishes. They aren't the main thing. Next question is it a flower? So am I growing this particular plant just for its floral additions? Next up, we're going to take all the plants that we grow inside of our kitchen garden and we're going to categorize them by season and by size. So the seasons, we're going to generally use a cool season, a warm season, and a hot season when we're categorizing these plants. And then the final thing you're going to ask, once you figured out the season of a plant, you're going to figure out the size. I like to categorize plants in just 3 sizes: small, medium, and large. So for example, in this bed, we have our small plants, which are root crops like radishes. We have lettuces that are also small. Then we have medium-sized plants. That would be things like this celery, maybe also some parsley, some cilantro, some dill. And then we have our large size plants, and that's going to be these cabbages. You can see how already they're taking up a much larger part of the garden. So those are our 4 categories, and that is the first step. So in step 2, we're going to start with our herbs and our flowers. In general, I've found herbs and flowers work best if you put those in first and you put them on the border of the garden. I don't have any flowers on the interior of this garden. Instead, the herbs and flowers act as soldiers along the outside of my raised beds. All right, once you've dealt with the herbs and flowers, it's time to move on to our next 2 categories, the seasons and the sizes. So you want to know what season you're currently in. Are you in the cool, warm, hot season? Maybe you're still in the cold season. So cold. Whatever season you're in, make sure you're clear on that and how many days you've got left inside that season. I teach this whole process in my book, Kitchen Garden Revival. If you haven't gotten it yet, it's a great help for planning out your garden. So find out your season, and then you're going to pick a variety of sizes of plants that all grow inside that season. So by changing up the sizing, you're literally doing companion planting just by using a variety of sizes rather than all one kind of size. All right, now it's time to pull it all together. We've already categorized our plants. We prioritized herbs and flowers along the exterior border of the garden. Then we put our seasons and our sizes together. And now it's finally time to do companion planting the easy way. So once you've decided the large, medium, and small size plants for your current season, it's time to lay out how they're going to fit together in the garden. And let me show you just one example of how I make this work in my own garden. So when I plant out the garden, I did the border first. We've already worked through that in step 2. And then when it was time to plant out the beds in the interior, I start with the large plants. So for this garden, I put in the cabbages first. Now at that time, they looked small. They were this small, but I knew that they were going to get big because I categorized them. So I've got big cabbages all coming through the middle of this garden. I already had this trellis here because I knew it would allow me to have some vertical growth. And that brings me to the next, what I call a large size plant, which are sugar snap peas. So these are different, obviously, than a cabbage. A cabbage is going to grow wide. These peas are going to grow tall. So I put the peas along the trellis. So that's the first step, is planting out your large size plants. Then we move on to the medium sized plants. So for me, I've got kale, Swiss chard, and celery. So I come right to the outside of the cabbage, and I've got these celery plants growing along this edge. and right here as well. These are medium-sized plants. I also like to put Swiss chard and kale up here in the corners. These have been bigger, they will get bigger, but I harvest from these so often. I make omelets from my garden every day, and I use the Swiss chard and kale. So kale you can hardly see, but trust me, you'll see it in a couple months. It's gonna be humongous. All right, so those are our medium-sized plants, Swiss chard, kale, and our celery. Then they don't seem medium-sized yet, but they will get there. And that's our cilantro, which is right here and here. And then I actually have seeded cilantro. You can see all along this row. So I know, you can't tell right now, but I know this cilantro eventually is gonna be this wide and this tall as it goes to seed. So it will eventually fill out as a medium-sized plant. Finally, we come to the small size plants, and those we're gonna put right next to the herb and flower border. So these you will put in from seed, and you can see just how big these seeds become. So part of the problem here, it looks huge, right? Because I need to come and harvest. But you plant these lettuce seeds all down this row here, and then they just grow in and fill in, you can see right along with the herb border. This companion planting method actually works. So let's review. So the first step is you're gonna categorize plants. Step 2, go ahead and put your herbs and your flowers all along the border of your garden. Next up, you're going to categorize the plants with seasons and with sizes. Each season needs at least 3 kinds of plants, small, medium, and large. And then finally, you're gonna plant out your bed, putting the large plants down the center and then tapering down, medium-sized plants next, and then the smallest plants will be put in by seed right behind the herb and flower border. This is a companion planting system that doesn't require a chart. All you have to do is understand these 4 categories, and you can plant almost any kind of plant together in any kind of space. This is a system I created for my own garden, and this is the system I've used to plant hundreds of kitchen gardens for my clients. So I know it works. It works for me, it works for them, and I know it's gonna work for you. Now, if you're wondering which season you're in and when to plant what, we've got a Gardenary calendar that you can download and start using right away. You can find the calendar right below this video or at gardenary.com/calendar. You give us 2 dates and then we fill in all the rest for you. And if you want a resource to help you do this, you gotta check out my book, Kitchen Garden Revival. In section 2, I go all the way through the classification of plants by season and by size, and it's gonna help you make so much sense of companion planting, no chart required. If you love this idea of putting plants together without all the rules, then you gotta check out this other video I made about plant combinations that actually work. There's tons of colors and flower and herb combos that you're gonna love. So if you're wanting some actual combinations to get you started, don't miss that next video. Please subscribe to the Gardenary channel. I would love to hang out with you all season in the garden, and I cannot wait to see the plants you put together in your own garden. Let me know in the comments below what questions you have about companion planting, and if this video was helpful, give it a thumbs up. I'll see you next time.